Gentlemen, good morning everyone. My name is Adam Hardy. I'm a student of the MCC, and I would like, in the name of the Youth Research Institute, I would like to welcome everyone here today to our conference, Emerging Voices 2.0, Perspectives from the Next Generation of Scholars in Youth Research. Opening remarks will be delivered by Dr. Zoltán Szalai, Director General of the Matthias Corvinus Collegium.
Thank you very much. I hope it's not broken. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much that you accepted our invitation. It's a great pleasure to have you here at MCC. And this conference and this topic is, all topics and all conferences are the best places at MCC. But I think this topic is especially good that we organize a conference with emerging voices about the challenges of the next generation. So it's basically, we will talk about with young people, with young scholars, young researchers, about the problems of the young people. So I think it's the best combination. And why is MCC the best place? Because we do it now for more than 20 years in practice. As you probably know, MCC has 30 centers all across the Carpathian Basin. We have more than 8,000 students, kids and students, from the age of 10 till basically the end of the PhD studies. We offer programs. So what we will talk about, we live it every day. We live this life with the young generations. We share the happiness, we share the challenges, and it's very good that we have the practice. We know how the everyday life of the young generation is, not just in Budapest, but from Békéscsaba to Sepsiszentgyörgy to Győr, in very different environments, in very different cities. And the main topics of this conference will be basically the researchers will examine the nature and dynamics of young people's relationships, context of their family, their friends, how they live in society. We will also discuss new forms of dependency, just like anxiety, alongside young people's perspectives with aspirations, career paths, challenges, how you can be successful, how you can have a happy life. So these topics, I think, are very important. I'm very happy that I see a lot of people, a lot of our colleagues who are doing this in practice. I'm very happy that I see, and I would like to congratulate for the Youth Research Center to organize this conference. And I hope you will have on this very important topic at MCC very good discussions, very good experience. And please, if any time in the future you have ideas, projects, challenges with the young generation, you have project ideas, you have different topics that you need a partner for, then MCC will be always there for you. So thank you very much for your attention, and have a great day today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zoltán. Our first panel of presentation today feature our keynote speakers. Each is an expert in their fields of youth research and have been specially invited to join us today. Our first, Dr. Isabel Rodriguez de Dios from the University of Salamanca's Department of Sociology and Communications. She is a postdoctoral researcher in communications and media effects, with research focusing on adult scans and social media, media psychology, and narrative persuasions.
So, hello everyone, I'm Isabel Rodriguez de Dios from the University of Salamanca, and I'm going to present this study on the relationship between social media and well-being in adolescents. Particularly, this is a longitudinal study that focuses on the online experiences. So this study has been conducted along with my colleagues, Sarah Pabian and Heidi van de Bos from the University of Antwerp. Well, so as you know, all of us spend a lot of time every day using social media, but especially adolescents. And this has raised concerns about the negative effects that this use could have on their well-being. So if we take a look at the media, we can see headlines like this with words such as break brains, harmful, risk of harm, dangerous, or calling for having these warning levels on social media. Due to these concerns on society, there has been a call for research, and a lot of research has been done around these topics. However, and contrary to expectations, not all the effects or not all the results are negatives. And some research suggests that the use of social media could be beneficial for some adolescents, or at least not harmful for all of them. So, for example, some studies have found that those adolescents with minority interests, like uncommon or unique interests, maybe they don't find other adolescents like them with these interests on their real life, on schools or neighborhoods. But when they do go online, they can find other adolescents with the same interests, and this can be positive for their well-being. They find this emotional support. And also, other studies have found that social media can be positive for adolescents to maintain a connection with their friends, which is positive, of course, for their well-being. And many studies that were conducted during the COVID lockdown found that for some adolescents, using social media during this period was positive because they could keep contact with their friends. They weren't allowed to be in contact in real life, face-to-face, but due to the use of social media, they could stay in contact, and because of that, they suffer from less loneliness and boredom, and this was positive for their well-being. But of course, there are also negative effects of social media. Also, during the COVID lockdown, other studies found that using a lot social media was bad for many adolescents. They suffer more feelings of loneliness and lower mental health, especially those adolescents who were looking for information online. And they found many information, many news about this situation, and this was bad for their mental health. So there are many studies about social media use and well-being. And one explanation for these contradictory findings can be the way of measuring social media use. So there are many studies about social media use and well-being, but not all of them conceptualize and measure social media use in the same way. Some studies measure frequency, how much time do you spend on social media, whereas others focus on the type of use that they do of social media. So in this study, we focus on that, on the type of use of social media, particularly on this dichotomy of active use versus passive use. So active use would be like using social media in a way that you are uploading content to social media, creating and sharing content. And according to past research, this type of use is related to greater well-being. And on the other hand, passive use, there is going online to browsing on social media, just to look other profiles, and consuming content is related to lower well-being. But why is active use positive and passive use negative? The next step in research was to take a look at these mediating variables, the variables that were explaining why some use of social media could be positive or negative. For example, one explanation for the negative effect of passive use was envy or upward social comparison. If I'm browsing Instagram and the other lives are perfect, I can feel that my life is not very good, and this makes me feel bad. Whereas if I'm going online and I feel, oh, my life is okay, this can be the downward social comparison. And also, one reason why social media use can lead to positive effects on well-being is a feeling of belonging. I feel part of other groups, as I said, with these students or these adolescents with unique interests, or also for inspiration. I'm looking for other people doing, for example, exercise on social media, and I feel motivated, and I also do exercise, and this can be positive for my well-being. So these mediating variables are really important when studying the effects of social media use on well-being. So as I said, there is a lot of research, but most of it is cross-sectional, and there is a lack of longitudinal studies. That means that, of course, cross-sectional studies are really useful and really relevant, but we cannot really talk about cause and effect, but rather of relationships. And there has been a call for more longitudinal studies to try to see how these variables interact over time. Also, as I said, we need to pay attention to these explanatory mechanisms that can help us understand why some uses of social media are being positive or negative. And in this study, we pay attention to 2 online experiences that can happen online, which are online social support and cyberbullying victimization. So in this study, we tried to fill in this gap by doing a longitudinal study with these 2 mediators. So, as I said, we pay attention to these explanatory mechanisms, online social support, which refers to receiving support on social media. I go online and I have people which I can talk about my feelings or about some things that I don't really know how to face. And in the other hand, sadly, we have cyberbullying victimization, which refers to receiving online harassment on social media. So we pay attention to these 2 mechanisms because we think that they could help us understand why social media is positive for some adolescents and negative for other adolescents. So according to previous research, active and passive use were related to receiving more online social support, and of course, online social support is related to higher life satisfaction and higher well-being. And cyberbullying victimization, according to previous literature, was related only to active social media use. So only those adolescents who were using social media in an active way, uploading things on social media, were more likely to suffer from cyberbullying. And of course, receiving or suffering from cyberbullying is related to having a lower well-being and a higher feeling of loneliness. So based on all of that, this was the goal of our study, to analyze the short-term longitudinal relationship between social media use and well-being and loneliness, considering the 2 mediators that I explained before. And we tested this model in which we don't expect direct effects of active or passive social media use on well-being, rather indirect effects through these 2 online experiences. And based on the previous literature, we didn't expect passive social media use to be related with cyberbullying. So as for the methodology, we conducted a 2-wave longitudinal survey with a 4-month interval. Of course, we used the same questionnaire in both waves and the same sample. We received the ethical approval from the university, and we received consent both from the adolescents and also from the parents. And the questionnaire took about 20 minutes to be answered. The sample was composed about adolescents between 14 and 18 years old, and in the first wave we received respondents from 800 adolescents, and in the second wave 708 of these adolescents answered again the questionnaire. So the retention rate was pretty high considering the sample that they were adolescents. So regarding the sample, it was a gender balanced sample. All of the respondents were living in Spain, and as I said, between 14 and 18 years old. So for the questionnaire, we use measures that have been previously validated with adolescents. And now, as for the results, our longitudinal model, as expected, showed that there were no direct effects of active use or passive use on well-being or loneliness. All the effects were mediated by the online experiences. So we found that active social media use was related to suffering more cyberbullying. And in the short term, this was related, of course, to lower well-being and a higher feeling of loneliness. On the other hand, we found that passive social media use was related to receiving more online social support, which was related in the short term to a higher feeling of well-being and lower loneliness. So just to conclude with the discussion and the conclusions of this study, as I said, we found no direct relationship of the frequency of type of social media use on well-being or loneliness. So according to our study, neither the frequency nor the type of use was directly relevant. What was important or relevant were these explanatory mechanisms, which were online social support and cyberbullying victimization. So if adolescents are using social media in an active way, they will find more cyberbullying. If they are using in a passive way, they will find more online social support. And all of these experiences are related to well-being. So this study showed that the relationship between social media use and well-being in the longitudinal term is mediated but not direct. Of course, this study, as every study, has the limitation that must be acknowledged. First of all, we only use 2 waves of data, and this might raise concerns about the real cause and effect relationship because we only have 2 waves of data, and ideally we should have done more waves of data, which is pretty difficult with adolescents because we are losing more and more sample when we are doing more questionnaires or more waves with them. Following the advice from the panel company, we did a phone survey, but I'm very reluctant with this right now because adolescents are not very okay with doing phone calls, and I think that this could be a big limitation of the study. So on future studies, we are using online surveys with this type of sample. Of course, we use self-report measures, which might be a subject of social disability biases. But yes, we were doing a longitudinal study with big samples. We needed to use these self-report measures. And we only measure online relationships. We didn't take into account face-to-face relationships that can, of course, also influence well-being and the type of relations that they are having on social media. For example, we didn't measure offline bullying, traditional bullying, which is highly related to cyberbullying. But just as a conclusion of this study, according to this study, the positive or negative impact of social media on adolescents could depend on their online experiences more than on the time they spend there or the things that they are doing on social media. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Next, we would like to ask the Youth Research Institute's very own head of research, Dr. Georgina Kiskozma, to the stage to deliver our second keynote presentation of the day. Dr. Kiskozma's research interests include youth studies, family policy, and nationalism. She is also a researcher and educator at the Center for Sociology at the Matthias Cornelius Collegium MCC School of Social Sciences and History.
So I would like to welcome everyone. It is good to see so many young people choosing a career in research, which is often challenging, as we well know. So thank you very much the introduction. My name is Georgina Kiskozma, and I'm the head of research at the Youth Research Institute. It is my great pleasure to present to you today at this very exciting conference the latest research results of the Youth Research Institute. As you can see, the title of my presentation is Carry the Fire, or Why Do We Need Children? It is a fair question why I choose this title. I would like to outline three important global trends that can influence the assessment of demographic situation, how we see the demographic questions. First of all, declining global population. The demographic situation on a global level has changed considerably. The United Nations World Population Prospect 2024, which is published in every 2 years, assumes that the global population will peak in this century with a probability of 80% and then gradually decline. The forecast predicts that the number of people will rise from 8.2 billion in 2024 to 10.3 billion before reversing this trend and falling to 10.2 billion at the end of the century. According to the latest report, the global spread of prosperity, the falling birth rates, and longer life expectancy will reduce the world's population by 700 million, or 6%, by the end of the century, compared with the expectation a decade ago. A decade ago, the probability of this happening was only 30%. The reason for this is that some of the world's largest countries, like China, have a lower level fertility than expected. So, speaking total fertility rate, which is the second global trend I would like to mention to you. As you know, a country's population is sustainable when a total fertility rate reaches 2.1, but more than half of the world's countries are below this replacement level. Another important change is that women today have one fewer child on average than in 1990. While the global fertility rate in 1990 was around 3.31, the estimated total fertility rate has now fallen to around 2.25. Almost a fifth of countries, including China, Italy, the Republic of Korea, or Spain, are also among the countries with the so-called ultra-low fertility, with a total fertility rate of less than 1.4. Why it is important? Countries with extremely low fertility have a very low probability of only 0.1% of returning to replacement level in the next 30 years. And the third global trend I would like to mention to you are the aging societies. Because in parallel with depopulation, life expectancy is increasing and the age structure of the societies is changing fundamentally as a result. By the end of the 2070s, the number of people aged 65 and over is expected to reach 2.2 billion worldwide, exceeding the number of children under 18. So in these times, the willingness to have children also generally decline. Young people tend to postpone starting a family, which ultimately leads fewer children being born. So an important goal of the Youth Research Institute is to understand young people and the world in which they live. It is an important task to find out what young people think about their future and their plans for starting a family. Yes, so my presentation is also based on the result of our latest research. Our aim was to compare the future and family formation plans of young people living in the United States and Hungary. In the United States, our data collection partner was the Signal. The The research was conducted by the Youth Research Institute between December 2024 and January 2025 among Hungarian and American citizens between the ages of 15 and 39 on a nationwide representative sample of 1,000 respondents. It is a good question why we choose this age group, I mean 15 and 31. In Hungary, the term youth usually refers to people between the ages of 15 and 29, but we can also observe that there were some major societal changes that had a great impact on young people's lives, and as a result, the youth life stage has both expanded and changed. What do I mean by this? To become an adult, we have to experience some life events, and these life events include reaching the highest level of education, entering the labor market, moving out of family nest, getting married, and having children. Due to these major societal changes, however, these life events are being experienced later and later, and young people study for longer, enter the labor market later, move out of the family house later, and start a family later. So, and we can also observe that for those under 29, we can often only examine future plans, for example, in relation to starting a family. But back to our research results. As I have already mentioned, the demographic situation in Europe has been unfavorable for a long time, and one of the main factors behind the population decline is the decreasing willingness to have children, which is due to a rapid change in fertility behavior. And the most important factors influencing fertility behavior are the postponement of childbearing and changes in marital status. Although we can observe that there are more and more forms of cohabitation, starting a family traditionally begins with marriage. Several studies, including the earlier research by the Youth Research Institute, have also shown that married people are more satisfied with their relationship status than those who live with their partner. Our research shows that 2/3 of young people in both Hungary and in the United States would like to get married at some point in their future. And the following figure shows that the vast majority of young people in Hungary and in the United States desire lifelong commitment. It is interesting to note that 40% of Hungarians and 50% of the Americans consider marriage as the most ideal form of lifelong commitment. But in this age group, having children is often postponed, as I have mentioned, and more young people are only starting a family in their early 30s. In Hungary, for example, women between the ages of 20 and 24, who used to be the most fertile age group, had more than 2/3 fewer children between 1990 and 2009. They were replaced by women in the second half of their 20s and early 30s, and this cultural shift happened very quickly and in a relatively short period of time. The result was a sharp decline and then stagnation in fertility and birth rates, and the annual birth rates doesn't include children born to young mothers. And lost births were not replaced at all in the 1990s, which is a great problem today. The average age of women at the birth of their first child has risen from 23 to 30, and this means that women are now starting to have children at an age when they were almost finished decades earlier. Yes. In our country and in the United States, young people have similar views on the age between 22 and 25 as the lower age limit for the responsible decision to have children. But while young people in Hungary believed that the upper age limit is around 40, young people in the United States believe that a responsible decision to have children can be made even after the age of 45. However, postponing childbearing often increases the likelihood that not all planned and desired children will be born by the end of the day. It is no coincidence that young Hungarians and Americans believe that the ideal number of children is 2, but they raise fewer than 1. However, the question arises as to why they plan fewer children than they consider ideal, and why the number of children they plan to have is less than the number of children they wish to have. So, as I have already mentioned, the major social changes are having a profound impact on the lives of young people in particular, and it is therefore important to analyze the social climate in which young people live. Both young people in Hungary and in the US feel that we have talked more about artificial intelligence, migration, climate change, and mental health in the last 5 years. So we see that young people's self-reflections shows that there are the topics that are most often the subject of public discourses. The family and population are at the bottom of the list of this topics. At the same time, however, it is particularly important to talk to young people about the family in order to make them aware of the risk of postponing starting a family. But perhaps it is more interesting the question of how young people see the issues that should be discussed more in public. Young people in Hungary think that the future, mental health, and the family should be discussed more, while young people in the United States think that the mental health, climate change, and the future should be discussed more. But young people's plans to start a family are also determined by what they think of an ideal family. Our research shows that the family considered ideal by young people is the traditional family, although the data shows an increase in cohabitation and a weakening of the institution of marriage with more divorces, later marriages, and trends celebrating the single lifestyle including social media. According to the respondents, in an ideal family, both the mother and the father are present. The biological parents of the children live together and raise their children together. The mother and the father are married, and the parents have their first child at a young age, under 30, and the grandparents are actively involved in raising the children. And nowadays, because women are also present in the labor market, it is therefore not surprising that young people consider that it is ideal if parental responsibility is shared equally between the parents. We see in the following figure that both climate change, climate ideology, and intentional childlessness are widespread, especially among young people living in the United States. Almost 1 in 2 young people in the US believe that childlessness is a conscious decision, and a third also believe that it is important not to have too many children in order to save the planet. We also know today that to solve the climate problem, we need more advanced technologies and more talented young people to develop these innovations. But I need to mention one more important factor which is influencing young people's future plans. Today's modern life doesn't support traditional family models. What do I mean by this? The life stage of youth lasts much longer today, and not in a biological sense, but in a social sense. Over the last few decades, as I have already mentioned a lot of time, there were some major and important social or societal changes, and it is no secret that young people live differently from the previous generation. These social changes also had positive consequences, of course, thanks to the expansion of education system. For example, more and more people studied and the basic education of society increased. But at the same time, however, this also meant that the time to have children was delayed. So, besides globalization, the digital culture and the crisis have a significant impact on young people's future plans. If we look at the problem map of young people aged 15 and to 29 in Hungary over the last few decades, we can also see that the weight and the order of the problems perceived young people has changed. Specific problems are taking a backseat to volatile problems, and uncertainty and unpredictable future are seen as the most pressing problems today. Another significant change was in 2020 that the lack of friends and communities was articulated as a new problem for the young generation, which immediately became one of the most important problems. And in 2023, the main problems perceived by young people haven't changed. So, it is therefore not surprising that both Hungarian and American young people consider it important to enjoy their youth, see the world, and achieve their professional goals before starting a family. But finally, let's talk about the future a little bit. In addition to family starting plans, the survey was also analyzed young people's plans to the future. We asked them what they think about 2024 and what they expected from 2025. More than 80% of young Hungarians said they had been confronted with unexpected events in the past year, but had fulfilling human relationships too. More than 60% were considered about external circumstances, and 3/4 successfully implemented their plans. Young Americans gave similar answers. More than 80% of the respondents had to face unexpected events, and the same proportion had fulfilling human relationships. 3/4 of them were concerned about external circumstances and successfully realized their plan. And finally, both in the US and in Hungary, young respondents appear to be optimistic about the future. 2/3 of young Hungarians are confident that they will be able to successfully realize their plans, while 60% of young Americans think the same. 2/3 of Hungarian young people are confident that they will have fulfilling human relationships, while 55% of American young people think the same. 44% of US and 40% of Hungarian young people believe that they will face unexpected events in 2025, and the further 40% of US and Hungarian young people expect to have to worry about external circumstances as well. So thank you very much for your attention, and have a great day and enjoy the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our third keynote panel of the morning is by Dr. Emilson Veloso, Institute Affairs Officer, Researcher, Lecturer at Corvinus University of Budapest, Institute of Marketing and Communication Sciences, and Institute of Finance. He has professional experience in journalism, digital marketing, and political communication, with research interest in social media studies, youth circles presentation, and visual mobile communication.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to see you all here today and to speak to you. Today I'm going to be talking about youth communication technologies with an emphasis on AI and the workplace. This will be the agenda for today, so I want to cover why AI matters and why should we talk about this topic related to young professionals nowadays, how youth are using and communicating through and with the support of AI at work, and the opportunities and risks that these new technologies bring to them and to their companies. In connection to that, I also want to emphasize some skills or some directions that we should take as academics and as part of the training environment for these youth at universities, what we should focus on regarding AI literacy. To get started, I want to hear a little bit from your own experiences as well, and I want to present you a question. First, I want to see how many of you here have already chat with GPT, Gemini, Copilot, or any other chatbot. It can be for studies, for fun, so raise your hand just to see. Okay, very good. It seems like most of us are already interacting with that. Isabel, since you're also towards that group, would you mind sharing like the last conversation or one of the conversations you had with AI? What was that for? Like. So proofreading is actually one of the, thank you for sharing, by the way, is one of the tasks that young people also rely on AI. I will flip the presentation and I want to go for the results a little bit before going through some market data because one of the interviewees in this research, in one of the researches that I will present, who is a young professional living here in Hungary, also pointed out that as proofreading and reviewing emails, but he says that he uses AI for everything. So this is a person who has a short experience in the market, but has already been working for a while and was placed in a new environment. So his first language is not English, and he moved to Hungary to work in a multinational company. And he says that he uses it for everything. Learning technical English is one of the criteria. Reviewing emails, creating presentations, researching company data, but also something that is more unique and has become more common in the recent months, which is to generate images and interact visually or in a multimedia way with AI. Here is an example with the participants. I asked them to share some examples of the conversations they had with AI. And this person shared one conversation that they had asking AI to generate a logo. So this is a graphic design task, and it's reshaping how we produce content. He basically asked AI to produce one logo for his group inside that company and provided very specific criteria there. As you can see, there is a knowledge from his side of how he should frame the text for the AI to be able to provide something. And there is also a history in the conversation because he states based on the one I sent you previously. So there was already a briefing before that. Technology has, I want to go a little bit on a historical overview now, and later I will come back to the results. But technology has evolved quite a lot in the past 100 years, and if we take the past 50 years, it has drastically changed the way that we communicate, the way that we work, and the way that we communicate at work as well. We can take, for instance, the invention of the internet and the smartphones or mobile computers in the past 40 years and how that impacted the way that we produce content from a communication perspective. For instance, how we write content. Before computers and internet, we couldn't exchange an email. We had to find different ways, maybe call that person, send a fax or something else. So these technologies have been reshaping the way that we work and the way that we communicate at work. And I'm arguing here that with generative AI and large language models, we are entering a phase of AI-mediated communication, especially at the workplace. And this has implications to the way that companies have to relate to their workers, the way that they try to attract new workers to the company, and also the way that we as an academic community train those people who will be entering the labor market. Some market data to help us visualize and understand the current scenario. We have academic research going on in this topic, but as it is a fast-changing subject and recently new, especially considering generative AI with the past 3 years, mainly being the popular subject and the popular communication tool in the market. Market reports help us to understand that before academicians can. This specific report from McKinsey point out that this sector might generate 4.4 trillion in annual productivity growth. So the application of AI into companies that are already producing something could boost their earnings. And most of the companies, nearly 92%, they are willing and planning to increase, so it's part of their plan to invest somehow in AI and embed that into their ecosystems. But only 1% of those companies feel confident enough and understand that they are mature to start using those technologies. So although there is an intention, there is no maturity in that yet. According to the OECD, now more concerned to the workers, not necessarily the company, nearly 80%, 4 out of 5 employees say that using AI, they are already using, even if it's not part of the company yet, if the company is only planning, has improved their work performance. And they feel like it increases at nearly 60%. It states that using AI increases their job satisfaction. But at the same time, 60% are aware that this might present some changes in the way that they will work in the future and may compromise their stay at the company. As I pointed out with the example from the interviewee in our research, AI has evolved a lot in the past 3 years, and it has gone from a text-based chat to a more multimedia and visual-oriented platforms. This is an example just to illustrate and to make it a little bit fun. I went to that and to reflect on the compromises that we and the critical thinking that we should have towards that, especially considering youth. This is a trend that went on for the past 1 month, and it was basically to ask AI, provide a picture, and ask AI to produce a doll example of your own persona. And many young people get into that trend. It became very popular on social media as well to share this type of image. But many times we don't think of what I put in the title, what type of data we are providing to AI and how that will be used on the long term. So there is a behavior that is quite common and similar to what we had in social media, for instance, taking part in quizzes, and while taking part in quizzes, sharing our data. Now we are doing that textually, sharing our personal life, talking as a friend, and also sharing our images, giving our images to those platforms. There is a demographic change, as we already discussed in the, and saw in the previous keynote speech. And Gen Z youth are becoming a vast part of the job market nowadays. And it's why this is important. It is a generation that grew up and was socialized in a very different environment from, for instance, from my generation and prior generations. If we consider millennials or Gen X, we learned how to use the technologies as we grew up, while these younger people, they have been using them from a very young age. And that reflects their work as well, because they are bringing that to the workplace regardless of that being a company culture or not. So they are forcing that. And this especially the Gen Z and the Alpha that is about to enter the work market now, they correspond to about 2 billion of the world population, so it's a very big number, although, as we saw, the demographic might change in the next few years, but they are becoming vast part of the labor market now. And at some companies, they already represent 1/3 of the workforce. So that's very important. We have different generations living, communicating at the workplace, and these younger people who have been using this type of technology on their daily basis is becoming a vast majority. We recently conducted a research, just to give some context here in Hungary, to understand a little bit of how these young people perceive communication and the workplace, how companies relate to them. So this is Hungarian-centered research. And most of them pointed out, for instance, one difference to previous generations, that they value more the values, the positive culture at the company, and transparent communication, being very transparent, for instance, regarding salaries, than the financial compensation alone. This is important because the company has to understand, okay, to attract this generation, I don't need to only offer a high salary. Salary is important, but it's not the main or the sole factor for them to engage with that organization. And they also use their network and more informal communication when assessing if they want to enter a company or not, or if they want to stay at that company. They might not talk directly to the company itself and look for official platforms such as LinkedIn. They rather search on TikTok or go to another more informal platform nowadays with ChatGPT to understand if that would be a good place or not. So their peer references change quite a lot. And they also exclaimed that there was a frustration related to how companies communicate, because companies seem not to understand this desire that they have, especially for the transparent communication. And for instance, whenever a company posts a job position, they don't inform clearly what that will be, and that can generate frustration later on. They also think that there is also a difference. This is very characteristic to Hungary, but there is a difference, for instance, if the person was from Budapest or the countryside, and there is specific motivations to join in a company and start in work, whether more urban and Budapest-centered workers would look for experiences that would provide self-development. Those coming from the countryside were more interested in the financial compensation. We have seen this, that there is a huge development in AI, and that there is also a demographic change and cultural change with that demographic, but we still don't know, and these are some of the questions that I will be answering throughout the talk, but also that they remain open for further exploration, because what we are doing is a qualitative exploration, so we should dedicate a bit more of attention as researchers to these questions in the upcoming years. How do young professionals use AI for communication at the workplace? That is one of the first points that we have to analyze, understand. What communication competencies are needed and how they are changing with the advent of AI? And what are the ethical and cognitive challenges that AI may represent to these people? As I mentioned, this is an ongoing research, the second part. It's a qualitative exploratory research. And with Almas, we were trying to understand what are the required skills, especially on a communication perspective, and what are AI literacy curriculum covering, to see what education institutions should provide to these young people to be able to use AI effectively, but also consciously. The application of AI in the workplace from this research can be split into two. One is the more general usage of AI that we already commented here, for instance, to revise an email, to do a translation. But there is also specialized AI platforms that are providing more workflow improvement, or in specific industries, they can help in data analysis. And in the past few years, we have focused AI literacy mainly in the technical aspect, so towards development of technical skills that center on this second level, although we have professionals, most of the youth, using it for the first level as well, the more general use. And it can assist, for instance, in structuring content, improving tone and clarity, what we mentioned here, and workflow automation. I brought here 2 examples from people working specifically in marketing and communication and what they are doing. For instance, Idei, which is a person who works in marketing automation, it's one of the interviews, said that it helps them to formulate the message more courteously and more clearly. So they are trying to be more assertive in the way that they communicate and change slightly the tone that they communicate at work. And they are also working, as Ian pointed out, for proofreading, summarizing big content when they have a vast amount of text, editing and generating content, similar to the first interviewee. This offers productivity gain, so it facilitates the way that they work and they produce information at the workplace, but it also brings a complication factor, which is the over-reliance on AI. Once we start, especially generative AI, once we start using it, it can become easier for us to, okay, I just want to change the tone. Maybe I'm a little bit rude in the communication with my colleague in the written content, and we rely on that. And that can lead us to be over-dependent on these platforms and also generate a homogeneous output, because AI is generative AI and these large language models are based on repetition. So these patterns will be re-emphasized. This was noticed by a slightly older participant, but is still within the age group, 27 years old, who said that she sees, especially these younger people, interns and younger professionals, that they are very dependent on AI to write emails, to come up with ideas, and they end up feeling more insecure when they have to do something on their own without relying on AI. They are always going for AI for help, and whenever they have to act on their own, they feel a little bit insecure, and they might also feel like they shouldn't contact a colleague. It's better to ask GPT how to act in that situation than rely on a peer and talk about that situation. There are certain competencies that we have to develop, especially when thinking of AI literacy for this young generation. As I mentioned, most of the AI literacy curriculum that we analyzed, focused on technical capacity related to AI. And what we are defending is that we should move towards critical thinking to provide these younger people with more clear notion of what they might do or might not do, something that I believe we failed towards social media in the previous 20 years, and that led to several social complicated factors in society. We should not miss that regarding AI. We should focus not only on the technical skills that they need to improve, but also on how they should be using that, what are the ethical issues that are related to the AI, and this is a gap that we have. We are proposing a curriculum in that sense. There are also, related to these ethical issues, there are the environmental costs of using AI. So although the OECD and McKinsey point out that the companies are willing to implement AI, we have to assess at what cost we are moving towards technology, this type of technology, and using them, because that leads to how we allocate resources, natural resources in our society. Although I'm emphasizing the need for critical literacy, some of these youth, especially the ones with a more mature working experience, they already have a bit of this understanding because they lived through social media and they know that that can be a complicated factor. So they tend to filter what they are bringing into that, even if the company did not clarify that. We should also take responsibility as academicians in this journey. So we should be providing our students with the proper scope for them to develop these soft skills, not only training them technically, but providing them to get to the market, regardless if they are directly in communication or in other areas, for them to handle communication in this new scenario. And I believe that soft skills, communication-related skills, will be much more important, because as they get more reliable on the platforms, they will need to develop outside of the platforms the skills that they couldn't do there. And one of the professors we interviewed for this research, it pointed out that AI many times eliminate this friction. So I don't talk to my colleague because there is a friction in there, but that is important for us to learn and to grow. So we shouldn't remove that element. Just some final thoughts here and bring in an output from another participant in the research. These young workers, they are not only using AI and generative AI at work to help them with the tasks, but also to transition or to navigate their career. And many companies don't have this notion. Okay, they might get to AI to guide if they want to stay or not at that company. As you can see here, GPT kind of guided this person towards quitting their job. And if the company is not ready to deal with that, that can be a very complicated issue. Okay, I think with that we can conclude and the talk, and I hope we're going to have a chance to also discuss throughout the coffee and share our ideas a little bit more, just emphasizing the need for us to, both as academicians, work and train this younger generation, but not train them only technically, but critically to deal with this new environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, all of our speakers. Unfortunately, we will not have a Q&A session now, but please feel free to ask your question during our coffee break, which begins now. It will cost 15 minutes. Thank you.